Thank you very much for the opportunity to ask you some questions, Minister. I have in the riding of Calgary-Curry, we have lots of signs that have gone up. There's been a lot of interest on this topic, so I'm not going to mince words or anything. I'm going to try to ask you the tough questions that I'm getting asked, and I think that a lot of the people that I've talked to who are from Calgary-Curry, who I've talked to on the phone, or back and forth with emails, and even just on the streets, I've had even during Halloween, I had a lot of conversations with people while we were trick or treating, and so when I talk to people about this topic, it's obviously become quite a large topic over the last few, well, call it at least 6 weeks, probably a little bit longer. As I talk to people about this topic, it often comes from a place where in the initial stages, they were given information that parks were being sold. So that got a lot of people's attention. And I think that was kind of the impetus behind a lot of people getting signs and things of that nature. I think it's fair to say that there are no parks that are being sold, and we get that. I think that we've even heard that from the opposition in the House. And I think that even as I talk to people on the phone about this issue, still, they are coming to the sense that that is a true statement, that parks are not for sale. But what they do then do is they start to shift off, and they shift towards, and we kind of talked about it a little bit, but I wanted to get a clear direction on this, and that is this idea of delisting. And often you hear the words semantics and things of that nature. So I think what I find after having long conversations with people, and we discuss, the fact that we're passionate about parks, the fact that, people have been through the information that they've gotten, that they've started to get worried and things of that. And it usually falls into this idea that they're starting to get worried that the government is delisting parks in order to potentially sell them in the future or use them for industrialization or things of that. And that's where they get this idea of, I think a lot of the time it's been kind of framed as this semantics thing where, oh, you're not selling parks, but you're delisting them and then you're selling them. First and foremost, and I've got a couple supplementals on this because I do actually really want to try, now that I've got you right here and people are watching, if delisted, how will these areas, these lands, continue to be protected in law? That's the first one that I got for you.
Well, again, the delisting comment is unfortunate that people have been confused deliberately by certain types of organizations out there. The government and the Department of Alberta Environment Parks has many different types of land designations to be able to protect landscapes. In fact, within the Public Lands Act, I'll give you an example. In my neck of the woods, there's something called the Panther Plough. So the Panther Public Land Use Zone, which is underneath the Public Lands Act, you can have no motor vehicle access. You can only access that area by horse. There is no new development in there, and there hasn't been any development in that area since the late 1980s. So there's some the little bit of oil and gas activity that has been finishing up that was grandfathered within that area, but it doesn't exist. Now, that is certainly significantly more land protection than most of the parks that we're talking about today. Most of the parks that we're talking about today are campgrounds, day use zones, boat docks, those type of washrooms, those type of locations. They're not large landscapes. My point, though, is that both acts have ways to be able to protect landscapes, and in fact, the Public Lands Act, I would argue, that has, in some cases, more protection, because parks, at the end of the day, is about creating recreation opportunities within the department, which is important, but not necessarily the number one way to do conservation of large landscapes. Bringing large amounts of people into an area comes with its own conflicts. Now, the reason I want to emphasize, though, these areas, these campgrounds and the boat docks areas, is most of them are what's called a provincial recreation area. And so underneath the Parks Act, there's a provincial recreation area. Underneath the Public Lands Act, there's a provincial recreation area. And basically, there's no difference between the two. Because remember, this comes from a time when these acts were in two different departments. And now we're bringing one department together and trying to simplify the land designation things to make it easy to understand. Now, one of the problems is it's hard to understand. There are so many different types of designations, it can be confusing at times. But the point is, when it comes to these facilities that we're talking about, they will remain protected. They certainly will not be developed. One, we won't allow them to be developed. Most of them are in locations with strict development rules. And second, none of them would be big enough to be developed. Most of these, as I said, are campgrounds, boat launch areas or day use zones. And so I know I see the same stuff. People saying they're going to build coal mines on top of these or do big, large industrial complexes. There's none of these are of the size or the magnitude that would even make sense. First of all, but second, to reiterate, that's not where Alberta Environment Parks is headed with them. They will remain protected from industrial development.